j'ai du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma fleur sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire. So
the Washington Post editorial board called it, quote, one of the most nauseating instances of corrupt government favoritism the United States has ever seen. It's a sad fact. In the era of Donald Trump, we have to get more specific than that. Late Friday night, Trump commuted the 40-month prison sentence of his longtime buddy Roger Stone, who is due to report for the start of his sentence tomorrow. Stone was convicted of lying to Congress, witness tampering, and obstruction of the Robert Mueller investigation. In response, the special counsel himself defended the investigation in a rare op-ed in the Washington Post, writing this, quote, we made every decision in Stone's case, as in all our cases, based solely on the facts and the law and in accordance with the rule of law. The women and men who conducted these investigations and prosecutions acted with the highest integrity. Claims to the contrary are false. About a half an hour ago, we learned just how far Trump is going to go in his special favors to Stone. In response to a question from the judge, we're learning the president is voiding Stone's prison time plus his supervised release and the $20,000 fine. Joining us now, former acting Solicitor General and MSNBC legal analyst Neil Katyal. As promised, Claire McCaskill still here. Neil.
You described this as a state of lawlessness, Nicole, and it is it is fundamentally evil. Judge Amy Jackson said that Stone was prosecuted for covering up for the president, and now the president just drops his sentence. This is the essence of the abuse of his constitutional powers. And, you know, one way of viewing this is just think about what Richard Nixon did. He thought one night about pardoning Haldeman and Ehrlichman and Mitchell, and Haldeman said, don't you dare do it. And he never did it. Here you've got Trump doing what even Nixon was afraid to do. He's got an oath to take care that the laws be faithfully executed. That's what he's supposed to do under the Constitution, and he is spitting on it.
Take me through your theory on the why. Why is it so crucial to erase the Mueller investigation, the Mueller prosecutions, the Mueller guilty pleas, the Mueller sentences ahead of November, in your mind?
Well, I'm not sure that he's trying to erase them, because if he was trying to erase them, he would have pardoned Stone. What he really did was give Stone a kind of half-hearted measure of dropping all the criminal consequences of the conviction. But he didn't even do that very competently, because he can now Stone can be re-prosecuted. He can be prosecuted easily by the states, New York, D.C., Florida, all places in which Stone's crimes occurred. And he indeed could be prosecuted by the Justice Department itself in another administration for other crimes, or he should be prosecuted now. But of course, you know, with Barr at the helm, we don't think that's likely. But the bottom line is it wasn't even a complete erasure, Nicole. Obviously, the president sometimes wants it to be, but here he botched even that.
Claire McCaskill, it's the death of outrage on the right that I've mourned for much of the last 4 years. The Access Hollywood tape, which was the beginning of Republicans looking away so quickly their necks almost snapped off. We now have what is such a clear and present threat to the rule of law. It was the Trumpiest of all attorneys general, Matt Whitaker, who approved the indictment against Roger Stone. On July 8th, Bill Barr said it was a righteous conviction and sentence. And that was after he meddled in the sentencing of Roger Stone and got it reduced from 9 years to the 40 months that Judge Jackson settled on. What does it say? That nobody leaves, Nobody quits. Nobody resigns. There was sort of a limp effort to suggest that Barr might, but I made a few calls and it really didn't check out. I mean, what does that say about the depth of the corruption?
Well, this was a criminal transaction. And I think a legal theory is very sound that this was a broad criminal conspiracy that the president and Roger Stone were part of. They were part of hiding evidence against the president. And the judge found that very clearly in this case, that Roger Stone wasn't lying to protect himself. He wasn't lying to protect his wife. He wasn't lying to protect his family or some other criminal. He was lying to protect the president of the United States. So there is a theory out there, which I think has a lot of validity, that there is still a case that could be brought against this criminal transaction. Now, let's talk about the Republican senators. We have Barr saying it was a righteous prosecution and a fair sentence, even though 4 prosecutors quit over Barr's meddling in the sentence. But we have Republican senators that are saying nothing. This shows such a lack of respect for the voters, Nicole. Do they actually believe that the voters don't see what's happening here? Do they actually believe that voters don't realize that the disrespect with which they're being treated? The notion that Cory Gardner or Tom Tillis or Joni Ernst or Martha McSally or John Cornyn is too afraid to stand up and say, presidents can't commute sentences of people who are lying to protect them and threatening witnesses to protect them. This is not complicated. And I said over the weekend, and I believe it, I believe the Republicans will lose the Senate over this, and they deserve to.
It is Tuesday, the 14th of July of 2020. And you are in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. I am your chef de cuisine, Justice Putnam. Gunner, the English Bulldog, is our snoozing sous chef. And our daily special is Tarrytown Chowder Tuesdays. Oh, we should have gotten something a little bit more sophisticated for Bastille Day. But no, actually Bastille Day is the perfect day for Tarrytown Chowder Tuesdays. Indeed. Well, we certainly apologize here at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, as well as the whole of Netroots Radio. I don't know why we're apologizing, but we have to because we were off the air through no fault of our own. It was almost like an act of God. Almost. The power was off for most of the day yesterday, starting pretty early yesterday, about 5:30-ish or so. Started getting a brownout, and then it just shut completely off, and was off for most of the day. It came on almost about 4 o'clock on the West Coast here, and the whole region here was out. When I say region, actually, it was just parts of 2 large counties in terms of landmass. The report was that it was down to power lines that then started a fire. No word on how the power lines were downed. And a lot of times when power lines do come down from a car crash, which happens occasionally on River Road, where the truck lines are, the main truck lines are from the power station that's along the river. When cars crash and bring down power lines, it just goes immediately off. There's no brownout. It felt like a lot of people turning on their power all at the same time is what it felt like. But regardless, somehow the power lines became disconnected and were on the ground. And that's all we got. I don't know why they were down, if it was because of winds. It wasn't windy at the time. Was it a power surge and just blew the lines apart? I mean, that could happen. I've seen it before. So we don't know. But we certainly apologize. It was certainly a drag. I had anticipated being able to record a podcast for River City Hash Mondays, but unfortunately that was not to be. by the time power was restored, you know what? I realized that even with a laptop on battery power, there's a lot of stuff I need to do online, even to record. Anyway, I was starting to lose a bit of power anyway through the course of the day, and I was unable to do a podcast for yesterday. I apologize for that. We'll make it up somehow. Okay, but that was just a reminder that it should be infrastructure week every week. I would like to have, an upgrade on at least our electrical infrastructure so that's not hacked by hostile foreign powers or just falls apart because of use. I mean, come on. Let's maintain this stuff. My God, if you got the ship of state, you better be scrubbing that hull down. Yes, barnacles grow on it. It really interferes with its sailing ability. Scrape the barnacles off the ship of state, and we will run and sail much more efficiently. Cut right through the water. Speaking of which, boy, is Trump degrading? He was accusing Obama and Biden of stopping the tests. And that's why Obama's numbers were low. I think, no one's brought this up because everybody says, oh, he's talking about COVID. Nah, I think what he's talking about is Ebola. Now, the reason there was only 4 deaths from Ebola is because they didn't do any tests. Well, that's a damn lie. The reason there were only 4 deaths is because Obama took proactive measures, listened to the scientists, including Dr. Fauci. Well, maybe that's why Fauci's being ignored, because he was listened to by other presidents. If that guy listened to other presidents, he can't be trusted. So, I think it was about Ebola, but it's still a damn lie. They didn't stop the tests. They did more tests if you really wanted to get down to it. And they took some measures to, keep Ebola at bay. Rather than assuming, oh, this is just to make me look bad. Jeez. Spoiled rich boys. There ought to be a law that spoiled rich boys should not be allowed to run for president at any time. I don't care whether they're Democrat or what. Jeez. These guys are just the least capable of being able to run the ship of state. Ooh, you don't want this guy to be captain anymore. Oh, my God. So let's hope that we can get him out of here in November. I mean, even Hillary's saying he's not going to go quietly. And we already know the reason why, and we've mentioned it even from the very beginning of this administration. This guy cannot afford to not be president. It's the only thing that keeps him alive. Because, look, a lot of convenient things can happen when you cross Vlad. And I think he's actually crossed Vlad a few too many times. And the only way he can stay alive is, holding on to this power. Okay. Oh, Pompeo met with Lavrov. I wonder if they talked about bounties. What's scary is that Pompeo probably took him a list of things, of people to off. Yeah, well, we don't like these guys either. There's so many Pat Tillmans in this platoon. Can you get rid of them? What? Trump would want to try to get rid of Pat Tillmans? Of course he would. Jeez, and he probably already has. That's what's scary. And Pompeo. Yeah, thanks. Bounties on the heads of our soldiers. It would have been nice to have maybe, threatened a few sanctions here and there. That would have been nice. No, they got to suck up to these guys. And they do it every single time, and now they're doing it out in the open. So much so that Mueller had to come out and say, hey, look, I really wanted to say something when Roger Stone was commuted and when they fired Berman and all this other stuff. But I'm here now. I told everybody, back in the day, when Mueller was running the U.S. Attorney Office out here on the West Coast, out of San Francisco in the Bay Area, we kind of didn't like him too much because he was going after black and brown people because that's what Bush wanted at the time. So, I didn't really think that we wanted to put all of our eggs into that basket. Mueller is not going to save us. I remember saying that over and over and over. But he was still the FBI director, the former FBI director. He had quite a bit of credibility, and it would have been nice if he hadn't been hobbled. The guy's playing by the rules, and this is what's the problem, okay? If you play by the rules with crooks, they game the rules, and you lose. Now, I'm not saying that you have to game the rules. You just have to be aware that the rules are being gamed and take measures in appropriate measure. Measures in appropriate measure, yes. Say that a few times and try to make it make sense. Eek. So he was incapable of doing that? Were the rest of his team incapable? Well, I understand, it did add tremendous credibility not to say anything, not to let any leaks come out, not to push the investigation in one way or the other, just let the chips fall where they may, except when the chips fell where they may, then they were hobbled by, apparently, OLC memos that said, well, with this president, he can do anything he wants. All the other presidents, that's different. We're already talking about, we got to take measures so that a future president doesn't do any of the things that this guy's doing. How about doing something that this guy's doing right now and stop it? Other presidents won't do this BS. I know that it might set precedent. But if you have someone that has just a tad of a moral structure, just a pinch, a mere dash of ethical understanding and adherence, another president wouldn't be doing any of this. At least not so blatantly. Come on. Do it covertly like a regular president does. Come on. Which reminds me, the scary part are the covert things that are going on that we don't see. And unfortunately, it's not this guy in the Oval Office who's doing it. It's the people in his team taking advantage of the situation. And we know who they are. Wouldn't it be nice to have a complete purge of all of this? I know it seems terribly undemocratic. Yeah. To go and purge the judiciary of all Federalist Society judges that have been packed in the courts. We're supposed to let them have a lifetime tenure when some of them don't even have they don't have a rating from any legal organization to be competent enough to be a judge in any capacity, let alone sitting on appellate courts or higher. Or how about this? How about your credit card debts getting paid off and, I don't know, a lifetime supply of beer? Yeah, no wonder Trump thought that old Kavanaugh was a traitor for not backing him up here in these recent court cases. Now Trump's thinking, we're buying beer for this guy? Stop it. Well, we got our work cut out for us. We have to make sure that we overcome the voter suppression efforts that are going to be mounted in a militarized way. When I say militarized, I mean tanks and 50 calibers in the streets. That's the kind of militarized voter suppression I'm talking about. We have to overcome that by having a massive get-out-the-vote effort. They can only manipulate the margins. I know they've undermined pretty much the infrastructure of the ship of state, but we can wrest control of the wheel back to where it rightly belongs. and start fixing the ship of state. We have to repair it. And that might mean making sure that those making the repairs are not from the previous team who undermined the infrastructure to begin with. Can we do that? I don't know. We're probably going to have to look forward and not back. Like we always do, damn it. What's on the rest of the menu here? Well, Trump's botched his attempted erasure of the Mueller Report with Roger Stone's commutation. Yeah, I want to make it go away. Well, let's draw attention to it so that everyone sees it now. And I'm all for Roger Stone getting hauled back into court. What does he have to lose? Then on the rest of the menu, a vast majority of Republicans in swing states support the virus aid Moscow Mitch McConnell is blocking. Yeah, he's coming out saying that they may lose the Senate. It would be nice to lose Mitch McConnell, too. A federal judge permanently blocked Georgia's 2019 heartbeat abortion law, finding that it violates the U.S. Constitution. And Mars is about to be invaded by planet Earth. Big time. And after the break, we move to the chef's table, where the UN Special Rapporteur on Freedom of Expression accused the White House of mounting an onslaught against the media globally. And the New Zealand opposition leader resigned 2 months out from the election, leaving the Conservative National Party scrambling to find a new leader to face Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern. All that and more on West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit. Bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com. To the rightish of the page is our chat room link, and our chat room is monitored by Kelly Lincoln. Thank you, Kelly. To the leftish of the chat room link at the bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com is the link to our Patreon page, and if you could become a recurring Patreon of Netroots Radio, it really does help us pay our bills, though the bulk of how we fund this little powerhouse of resistance comes out of our own wallets. We would still be unable to do it without you, and thank you. I should mention also, I'm trying to make sure I have mitigated the edict on charging people taxes in some areas of the world. And that might even include Washington State. Taxes are being exacted, and so I've modified what the, quote, benefits, end quote, are, so that they're not considered to be tangible goods. Even goodwill is sometimes considered to be a tangible good. Wow, who knew? But anyway, I hope that I have done that, and if that is not the case, and you out there who are recurring contributors who are being dinged unnecessarily, especially when you opted out of the benefit, I know. I went through all the protocols that Patreon said to do, so I'm hoping that this time that it works. If not, then there is another process in which we get to talk to somebody, or at least chat. Okay, and that's not monitored by Kelly, by the way. It should be. It really should be. But thank you to those of you who have been recurring contributors, Patreons. Your generosity has helped us fulfill our civic duty as the founders originally intended. If you would like to follow Netroots Radio on Twitter, do so at Netroots Radio. Tom takes care of that. And both Kelly and Tom do so much more than just those tasks. Thank you both. I, of course, take care of at Justice Putnam. Go ahead. I think you should follow me there because I post the show notes and links diary. I cannot call it a show notes and links story. It's going to be a diary because it's on Daily Kos. That's how you tell it's Daily Kos. Come on. Please. Anyway, the show notes and links go there. And then I post those show notes and links, or post them. I put them out there on social media. I link it. I link it up on social media. And that's what you do. Still not able to do it myself on Facebook. I've noticed a lot of my friends and colleagues out there in the world have been informing me that they have recently been put in Facebook jail too for the most ridiculous reasons. Most of it is correcting Trumpian disinformation. I mean, just the mere... If you go to even the Facebook correction pages, and they will say what Trump said here was false, and then you post that, my colleagues and friends are getting suspended because that's called harassment. That happened to me too. Started happening a lot when the people from Daily Caller took over. You know, the ones that, I guess it's the minor leagues or a farm club. It's a farm club for getting on to Tucker Carlson's show. You can't get on to Tucker Carlson's show unless you're really a real racist, a die-in-the-hard incel racist. Die-in-the-hard? Dyed-in-the-wool incel racist. And they have those. And apparently if they get kicked off of Tucker Carlson's show for, I don't know why... I mean, that's the whole reason for the show, isn't it? They can go back to the Daily Caller and work on the Facebook censor team. Sure seems like that's what they're doing. Anyway, you won't be able to get it from me on Facebook. We'll have to have Kelly do that for us. But that's what we do. And if you would like to follow the show on Twitter, do so at Cookbook West. And pick up podcasts by way of Spreaker, Stitcher, TuneIn, iHeart, YouTube, iTunes, etc., etc., etc. Oh, Spreaker got bought out by some big concern. We'll see how that goes. We've been with them since they started. Yeah, they actually had to write a particular code to carry the show live because before, the app on the mobile phones didn't allow, it only allowed recorded things, and they actually wrote a code to be able to carry a live stream. I thought that was pretty neat. That was a long time ago. And now they're big. But we're still a little powerhouse of resistance. We kind of duck and weave and bob. Hopefully we don't get smacked head on. Hopefully. All right. We better dive into what we have offered here in the Bistro Cafe. And also we have things in the back at the chef's table too. All right, so, save a little bit. They're just a amuse-bouche, just a tiny little kiss on Bastille Day. God, I used to celebrate Bastille Day with fervor when I lived in the Bay Area. Now, if I lived in the Bay Area, would I really want to? Not with fervor. If you celebrate with fervor now, you get a fever later. About 2 weeks, 10 days to 2 weeks, and then in that interim, you've given other people the fervor of your fever as well. At least the potential of it. Celebrate quietly at home and wear a mask. Do wear a mask. All right. This first offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy is by Josh Israel out of the American Independent. The vast majority of swing state voters back the House Democrats' latest coronavirus relief proposal, according to a new poll. The bill, which is currently being blocked by... Can I do a little bit of editorializing like I normally do? Oh, yes, I will. Moscow Mitch, Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, is also supported by most GOP voters. Even in his own state, they want to have Medicare expansion, but he won't give it to them because that Deripaska money goes a long way. A new poll by progressive think tank Data for Progress and the Justice Collaborative Institute, no familial affiliation, by the way, released on Friday, that they found 76% of voters polled in key presidential or Senate 2020 battleground states support the emergency response legislation, whereas just 16% opposed it. 1/6. Among those surveyed, Republicans favor the bill 68 to 25%, independents at 77 to 13%. Wow. The poll surveyed voters in Alabama, Arizona, Colorado, Florida, Georgia, Iowa, Kansas, Kentucky, Michigan, Maine, Minnesota, Montana, New Hampshire, New Mexico, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, Texas, and Wisconsin. We don't have any Z's, you know. The bill, known as the Health and Economic Recovery Omnibus Emergency Solutions Act. Can we just get an acronym that says like a word? No one's going to remember this. What are we going to call this? We'll call it the Coronavirus Relief Bill. That'll be easy. Well, it passed the House in May on a 208 to 199 vote. It would provide trillions of dollars to address the public health and economic challenges caused by the COVID-19 pandemic, extend expiring unemployment benefits, and provide $1 trillion in aid to struggling states and localities, including Kentucky. It also includes $75 billion for testing, tracing, and treatment, and billions more for hazard pay, child care, and workplace safety for essential workers. You can't have any of that because it makes Trump look bad. But the bill has stalled in the Senate, where Moscow Mitch McConnell has mocked it as dead on arrival because he is the Grim Reaper in the graveyard of democracy that they call the Senate now. And he's refused to even bring it up for a vote. Instead, he recently sent his colleagues home for a 2-week recess. And he's promised he will offer his own legislation eventually. I'm telling you, that Deripaska money goes a lot further than just funding an aluminum plant in Kentucky. I'll be unveiling something which will be a starting point in a few weeks, and we'll be dealing with the administration and the Democrats, he told Kentucky voters last week. He indicated that his proposal would focus mainly on helping the hospitality industry and on taking away the right of the people who get infected to sue liable businesses. While the nation waits on McConnell, cases and deaths are spiking and millions of Americans remain out of work. More than 3.2 million Americans have contracted the virus so far, and at least 135,000 people have died. And the unemployment rate remains at more than 11% as of June's data. But of course, all these numbers need to be suppressed. If they're released for general consumption, it's just to make Trump look bad. Jeff Amy of the Associated Press brings us this next offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy Tarrytown Chowder Tuesdays. Oh, happy Bastille Day, by the way. Allez Bleu! A federal judge permanently blocked Georgia's 2019 heartbeat abortion law, finding that it violates the U.S. Constitution. U.S. District Judge Steve Jones ruled against the state in a lawsuit filed by abortion providers and an advocacy group. Jones had temporarily blocked the law in October, and it never went into effect. The new ruling permanently enjoins the state from ever enforcing House Bill 481. Georgia's measure sought to ban abortions once a detectable human heartbeat was present, with some limited exceptions. Cardiac activity can be detected by ultrasound as early as 6 weeks into a pregnancy before many women realize they're pregnant, according to a legal challenge. And the bill narrowly passed the Georgia General Assembly amid intense lobbying for and against. Those who challenged the lawsuit said the ruling proves their contention that the measure was unconstitutional. Lead plaintiff, Sister Song, an Atlanta-based group that fights abortion restrictions on behalf of African American and other women of color, called it a, quote, huge win for bodily autonomy, end quote. They continued, no one should have to live in a world where their bodies and reproductive decision-making is controlled by the state, Sister Song Executive Director Monica Simpson said. Republican Governor Brian Kemp, who has supported the restriction, immediately vowed an appeal. Of course he would. We will appeal the court's decision. Georgia values life, and we will keep fighting for the rights of the unborn. And those who are already born, if you wear a mask, I'm going to make it illegal for you to live. In a separate ruling, a U.S. district judge in Tennessee blocked a Tennessee law that Republican Governor Bill had signed earlier, banning an abortion as early as 6 weeks into pregnancy and prohibiting abortions based on race, sex, or diagnosis of Down syndrome. Done of the AP brings us this final offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Mars is about to be invaded by planet Earth. 3 countries, the U.S., China, and the United Arab Emirates, are sending unmanned spacecraft to the Red Planet in quick succession beginning this week, in the most sweeping effort yet to seek signs of ancient microscopic life, while scouting out the place for future astronauts. The U.S., for its part, is dispatching a 6-wheeled rover the size of a car named Perseverance to collect rock samples that will be brought back to Earth for analysis in about a decade. Right now. You mean we're not going to find anything out for 10 years? Right now, more than ever, the name is so important, NASA Administrator Jim Bridenstine, or is it Bridenstine, said as preparations went on amid the coronavirus outbreak, which will keep the launch guest list to a minimum. Perseverance, yeah, you got to wait 10 years for any, before the samples even get to you. Oh, well, it'll be sort of like how it was back in the day when people had to sail. Oh, I guess they were sailing to the west, and were they sailing? Yes, they sailed to the west in hopes that they wouldn't fall off the edge of the Earth, and they never did. Now, each spacecraft will travel more than 300 million miles before reaching Mars next February. It takes 6 to 7 months at the minimum for a spacecraft to loop out beyond Earth's orbit and sync up with Mars' more distant orbit around the Sun. Scientists want to know what Mars was like billions of years ago when it had rivers, lakes, and oceans that may have allowed simple, tiny organisms like us to flourish before the planet morphed into the barren, wintry desert world it is today. Trying to confirm that life existed on another planet, it's a tall order. It has a very high burden of proof, said Perseverance Project scientist Ken Farley at Caltech. The 3 nearly simultaneous launches are no coincidence. The timing is dictated by the opening of a 1-month window in which Mars and Earth are in an ideal alignment on the same side of the sun, which minimizes travel time and fuel use. Such a window opens up only once every 26 months. That's more than 2 years for those of you who are math challenged. None of the listeners in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, of course. But we know that there are those out there who vote for a particular kind of fluffy-haired demon who have a challenge with math. They do. Mars has long exerted a powerful hold on the imagination, really, but has proved to be the graveyard for numerous missions. Spacecraft have blown up, burned up, or crash-landed with a casualty rate over the decades exceeding 50%. China's last attempt, in collaboration with Russia in 2011, ended in failure, a harbinger of things to come. All right, let's get to our break. And when we get back from that break, we will go through weather from around the world, and we will finish up with the stories that we have curated for you today. You're listening to West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, and we will be right back.
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
This is Scientific American's 60-Second Science. I'm Suzanne Bard. Like many birds, male white-throated sparrows belt out songs to defend their territories and attract mates. And until the year 2000, one particular song stood out as the most popular whitethroat tune in forests across Canada.
The end part of the song is a 3-syllable repeat. That's supposed to sound like, "Oh, my sweet Canada, Canada, Canada."
University of Northern British Columbia behavioral ecologist Ken Otter.
And if you look in most books that describe what the song sounds like, it always has a 3-syllable phrase at the end of it.
But when Otter moved to Prince George, a wooded city in Western Canada 20 years ago, he noticed that its sparrows were singing a different tune.
The males have dropped one of the notes, so instead of having 3 syllables repeating, it's actually 2 syllables repeating. Oh, my sweet Canada, Canada.
Back in the 1950s, though, the Prince George population was still singing the standard triplet song.
So sometime during that 50-year period, the song had transitioned to this new dialect, and all the males had adopted it.
Over the next few years, Otter's team discovered that the doublet song variant was spreading eastward.
And it's replacing the old song as it goes.
By 2010, the song had invaded Ontario, thousands of kilometers from Prince George. Once it became popular, it began to spread even faster.
And right now, it has moved all the way across eastern Ontario and is kind of bordering Quebec.
Otter was surprised by the rapid, widespread adoption of the doublet song because most new bird song dialects don't travel far.
It's very much at odds with a lot of the traditional ideas that we have about how dialects form and how they persist over time.
The doublet song likely owes its spread to the bird's migration habits. Tracking sparrows from Western Canada revealed that they intermingle with eastern birds on their wintering grounds in the southern Great Plains. Those eastern birds probably learn the new dialect there and then bring it back home. The study is in the journal Current Biology. It's not yet known what advantages singing the doublet song offers. So far, there's no evidence that the males react differently to the two variants when defending their territories. But the researchers also plan to test whether the new dialect's popularity is driven by a female preference for novelty. One thing's for sure, we aren't the only species that can make a tweet go viral. Thanks for listening. For Scientific American's 60-Second Science, I'm Suzanne Bard. Volunteers are needed to document how these song dialects are still changing today. Find out how you can help at whitethroatsong.ca.
This program is presented by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention.
As fall turns to winter, the flu season will be upon us in force. The best way to avoid influenza is to get immunized. Everyone 6 months and older should be vaccinated. Those at increased risk for flu complications include children under the age of 5 and adults 65 and older, people with chronic health problems such as heart disease, asthma, and diabetes, and pregnant women. To get your annual flu vaccine, see your healthcare provider or go to a pharmacy, grocery store, or clinic in your area. If you get influenza, talk with your healthcare provider right away about antiviral medication. Thank you for joining us on A Minute of Health with CDC.
For the most accurate health information, visit www.cdc.gov or call 1-800-CDC-INFO.
This program is presented by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Heart disease and stroke can be catastrophic. They're leading causes of death, disability, and healthcare spending in the U.S., yet they're largely preventable. Alarmingly, heart disease and stroke are taking a toll on middle-aged adults 35 to 64, with over 800,000 deaths and hospitalizations in 2016. Million Hearts is a national initiative focused on preventing 1 million heart attacks, strokes, and other cardiovascular events by 2022. Coordinated actions by Million Hearts partners in communities, healthcare, and public health will keep people healthy, optimize care, and improve outcomes in populations at risk. Everyone has a part to play. Focus on the ABCs of heart health. A. Aspirin use when appropriate. B. Blood pressure control. C. Cholesterol management. And S. Smoking cessation. To learn more, visit cdc.gov/vital signs. For the most accurate health information, visit cdc.gov or call 1-800-CDC-INFO.
Hi, it's Tom. Could we humbly suggest your donation to netrootsradio.com? All we've got to run this 24-hour powerhouse of progressive resistance radio is what comes out of our own wallets. And you are our biggest donor. It doesn't take much, $3, $5. Just go to the bottom of our netrootsradio.com page and hit our secure donate button. Heck, you can even make a recurring contribution, and you'll get a wondiferous pair of Netroots radio stickers for application to your backpack, your bumper sticker, or your banjo. Well, it's up to you which backpack you want to put it on. So donate what you'd like at the bottom of our netrootsradio.com's homepage, because you are our biggest donor. netrootsradio.com. Together, we are Resistance Radio.
This is 60 Second Civics from the Center for Civic Education. I'm Mark Gage. In the 1960s and 1970s, the government drafted thousands of young men to fight in the Vietnam War. Many of these young men were too young to vote. They did not have a voice in the elections for government officials responsible for deciding America's role in that war. The voting requirement at that time was 21 years of age. Congress passed a law in 1970 lowering the voting age to 18. The U.S. Supreme Court then ruled that Congress could only regulate federal elections. At that time, only 4 states allowed 18-year-olds to vote. Following the court's decision, steps were taken to amend the Constitution so that suffrage would be extended to 18-year-olds in both state and federal elections. In 1971, the 26th Amendment was added to the Constitution. The amendment grants the right to vote to any citizen who is 18 years of age or older. That's all for today's podcast, 60 Second Civics, where civic education only takes a minute.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1912. That was the day that Woody Guthrie was born in Okima, Oklahoma. Guthrie became one of the most prolific songwriters to ever sing the stories of the working class. His most well-known song is This Land Is Your Land, an anthem whose lyrics claim America for the common man. During the Great Depression, Guthrie traveled from Oklahoma to California with farmers driven off their land by the ravages of the Dust Bowl. He talked with them and learned their stories and songs. He spent the rest of his life singing the songs of those downtrodden. His guitar bore the message, "This machine kills fascists." Guthrie believed in the power of music. His songs serve as a lasting impression for many musicians, from his own son Arlo Guthrie to Bob Dylan, Bruce Springsteen, and many more. Even today, Guthrie's music asks powerful questions about how we as a nation treat workers. In his song Deportees, Guthrie tells the story of migrant Mexican farm workers. His lyrics explain, "We died in your hills, we died in your deserts, we died in your valleys and died in your plains. We died neath your trees, we died in your buses. Both sides of the river, we died just the same." He ends the song by asking, is this the best way we can grow our big orchards? Is this the best way we can grow our good fruit? Like so many of Guthrie's songs, these questions remain unanswered.
You won't have a name when you ride the big airplane. Oh, they will call you the deportee.
Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show. For more information, go to laborhistoryin2.com.
Thank you for accompanying us here to the Chef's Table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy Tarrytown Chowder Tuesdays. We always begin, whether from around the world, along the banks of the Rogue River, in the Rogue River Valley of Southern Oregon on the west coast of the continental United States of America, where it is currently 63 degrees Fahrenheit, nearly the same temperature as yesterday, which was around 90. Or hotter, depending. Winds will be out of the north-northwest and sunny conditions should prevail. The winds will be at 5 to 10 miles per hour out of the north-northwest. Clear skies tonight, lows in the low 60s. Winds will continue out of the north-northwest at 5 to 10 miles per hour. And continuing tomorrow at the same clip and direction with sunny skies, highs in the mid-90s or hotter. Confirmed coronavirus cases in Jackson County of Southern Oregon have increased to 181, and we don't record deaths here. Don't ask me why, other than the fact that Southern Oregon is pretty much controlled by Oath Keeper 3% sheriffs and QAnon idiots who have been elected to office. The moderates are like, the Daily Caller types Republicans. Those are the moderates. Well, grass pollen remains high right outside the window of the mothership here in Rogue River. The air quality index in the Rogue River region is good, though, at 29 parts per million, though that daytime UV index remains very high at 9. Take care. Barometric pressure is rising at 30.03 inches because high pressure will be prevailing for a while. Visibility is up to 10 miles and relative humidity is at 60%. It's getting dry. Weather from around the world is brought to you by people's personal weather stations that they purchased. These people planted these purchased personal weather stations somewhere on their property, and these people positively live around the world. London is 70 degrees and mostly cloudy. Paris is 75 and cloudy. Rome is 85 and sunny. Kyiv is 69 and fair. Kabul is 76 degrees with showers in the vicinity. Hong Kong is 82 and partly cloudy. with a full-time security law in force right now. So be careful. It might rain on your head. Oh, Hong Kong is 72 and cloudy with another flood watch that's been killing people in the hundreds at a pop. Sydney, Australia is 53 and mostly cloudy. San Francisco, California is 55 and mostly cloudy with a fog warning. And New York is 80 degrees Fahrenheit and sunny. And that is weather from around the world, brought to you by people's personal weather stations that they purchased. These people purchased personal weather stations somewhere on their property, and these people positively live around the world. Emma Farge of Reuters brings us this first amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. The UN Special Rapporteur on Freedom and Expression accused the White House of mounting an onslaught against the media and referred to a negative Trump effect on global press freedom. In his last press briefing before his 6-year tenure ends later this month, David Kaye said in a series of forthright comments that he hoped attacks on U.S. journalists would end when Trump leaves office. Clearly, the signature issue over the past 4 years now has been the way in which this particular president addresses the media, the way he denigrates the media, denigrates freedom of expression, Kaye told journalists in Geneva. Kaye specified that the so-called onslaught consisted of criticism of reporters and spreading disinformation, as well as partnerships with conservative media organizations.
Je te donne ce mon amour pour la vie entière. La promesse de me trouver à tes genoux. Aussitôt que tu m'appelles, rester toujours fidèle. C'est tout, c'est tout. Je te donne tous mes printemps, mes étés de mer, mes automnes quand les feuilles tombent partout. Si ce n'est pas une bonne affaire, je te donne tous mes hivers.
Anonymous worker bees at Reuters bring us this final amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy Tarrytown Chowder Tuesdays. New Zealand opposition leader Todd Mueller unexpectedly resigned after just over 50 days in the role, leaving the Conservative National Party scrambling to find a new leader to face Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern in the September 19th election. Mueller became opposition leader in May, following a string of opinion polls that showed Ardern's Labour Party was set to retain power. But he said the role attacked his health, and he wanted to spend more time with his family. How many times have we heard that before? The role has taken a heavy toll on me personally and my family, and this has become untenable from a health perspective, he said in a statement. New Zealand media reported Deputy National Leader Nikki Kaye will lead the party until a permanent leader is selected. It will be the opposition's third leader in 4 months. Mueller was embroiled in a scandal as opposition leader when a national member of parliament leaked confidential information about New Zealand's coronavirus cases to the media. The incident dealt a severe blow to the opposition's electoral chances. Ardern passed on her best wishes for Mueller and his family. No matter what side of Parliament you're sitting, politics is a difficult place, the Prime Minister said in a statement. New Zealand goes to the polls in September in what is expected to be a coronavirus-dominated campaign. Well, that brings us to the end of our broadcast period for the day. Now, of course, you do know Netroots Radio will broadcast on, and we're going to meet up tomorrow for Smothered Benedict Wednesdays. So do stay tuned to Netroots Radio all day and all night for all the breaking news as it breaks, and we'll meet up here tomorrow, right here, in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théâtres, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma fleur sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Goël. Je voudrais toujours te plaire dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je veux déjeuner par terre, comme au long de golfe clair, t'embrasser les yeux ouverts dans mon jardin d'hiver. Pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver.